before I get started. All right. Good morning, everyone. Over the last couple months, we've really enjoyed bringing you all some great educational content as we look to provide you with some, information sharing, and what better way to, take into our knowledge base of our chamber membership. So we've got some, Pieter Winne is going to share with you how to build a better business today. And I know Pieter is very, very familiar to many of you within the chamber, but we're excited to bring you this presentation on a large scale. And I think that you'll all get some great information from Pieter that we can take moving forward in the months and the years to come, and how we can have a better business. So Pieter, I will turn it over to you. I don't want to steal any of your thunder today, but we really, really appreciate you taking the time to bring this information to our membership, and look forward to what you'll be bringing to us today.
Thank you very much, Stacy. Welcome, everybody. As I would say in my brag group, good morning, everyone. It's still morning, so I can do it that way, right, Jess? That's me. So there you have it. So here's what I'm going to do today. So we'll walk through a couple things. First, I'm going to tell you a little bit about myself. I'll try to keep it brief because that's not what this is about, but I think it'll give you an idea of why I do what I do. And then I'll share a little bit about EOS and where it came from. And then I'm going to share with you what EOS is and how you can use it to run a better business and live a better life, quite honestly. So that's the plan. So I'll start a little bit about me. From upstate New York originally. When I was 11 years old, 2 of my brothers were killed in separate car accidents. And the 13-year-old ran his own lawn mowing company in upstate New York. So I'm 11 years old. The funeral was done, and lawns were getting long, and I'm like, I can't let him down. I got to go mow these lawns. So I'm 11. I couldn't push the mower up the hills, though. So that was kind of a problem. I would back it up, and I tried to do what I could. So I hired my friend Tim. Tim was a big kid. He mowed the hilly ones, I mowed the flat ones, and that was my first entrepreneurial gig. We ended up with every yard in the neighborhood. I think we had 6 or 7 kids working for us. I made 25 cents a lawn, so big cut of the pie. I think we were charging $1.50. So that was my start. I joined the military with a special operations contract and went through the selection process and served as a U.S. Army Ranger in a 2nd Ranger Battalion. And there it was all about leadership, discipline, accountability, teamwork, coaching. And I really got that passion for that type of thing there. Spent about 20 years in corporate America, where I ran a very large education organization for a large Fortune 100 company. But I always was hitting my head against the wall because here I was, an entrepreneur stuck in a big business. I later went on to an entrepreneurial organization where I helped them grow from 20 million to 120 million in the course of 9 years. The business was sold a couple of times, actually, to private equity. Time for me to go on my own. I was going to just do leadership training. And my plan for that was I'd go to John. Hi, John Winne. I would go to John and say, John, what's the best leadership book you ever read? And John would say, well, I would have to say that's John Maxwell's 21 Laws of Irrefutable Leadership. And my plan was I would then write a course on that book for your team. That was my plan. The first business owner that I reached out to, who I knew would do business with me, as I'd done training with him, said, Pieter, I would, but I'm into EOS. And I'm like, what the heck is EOS? That began my journey of EOS. So I've been an EOS implementer now for a couple of years. I'm bought into this. If you have 2 people working in your business, if it's you and an assistant, this works. So all it takes is having another person in your business, and EOS works. EOS was designed and created by a lifelong entrepreneur by the name of Gino Wickman. Gino's from Livonia. Those in the real estate world would have known Floyd Wickman from years ago. Gino was Floyd's son. Gino took over Floyd's business, turned it around, eventually sold the business. And during that time, he was one of the first 10 members of the EO chapter of Detroit. And he started to cobble together EOS. So EOS has now been around for close to 15, 20 years at this point. I don't know the exact date when Gino came out with it. Everything I'm going to show you is based on a book called Traction by Gino Wickman. Traction by Gino Wickman. Pick the book up. If you see me one day, I probably have one in my car. I'll get glad to give it to you. Life-changing. Gino took all the best pieces of running a business and put it all into one process called EOS. So without further, I'll show you how it works. Fair? Stop me if you have a question and you want more. So again, you should be able to see my whiteboard. So as I write, you'll see it. It all starts, so the EOS model starts with your business. So your business is at the center of the EOS model. So that's what it's based on. There's 6 components that we aim to strengthen within the EOS model. So we're going to strengthen these 6 components. And I'll walk through each of the 6. I'll give you an overview of all of them, and I'll give you a little detail as I go through the second time. So the first component is called the vision component. So vision. Vision is all about where are you going and how you're going to get there. It's not about a vision on the wall, which is great, those are all fine. But vision is really where are you going with the business and how are you going to get there. So that's the first component. You have to have a great vision. And in order to do that, though, you have to surround yourself with great people. So people is the next component of the model. And on the second pass, I'll give you a little detail behind each of them. So you can't achieve a great vision unless you surround yourself with great people. And you know that this applies in all matters of life, right? So it works in business, it works at home, it works with your friends. The people you surround yourself with are what's going to propel you forward. So in business, you gotta surround yourself with great people. The next component that we look at is the data component. And data is all about making decisions based on facts, based on data. A challenge with most entrepreneurs, me included, is that we often have a really good gut sense of what the right thing to do is. Is that true? Do I get some head nods? Right? You usually have your gut, you trust your gut, and it typically will work. And that's dangerous if you think about it. So the idea with data is it gives you more opportunity and the ability to be right more often. As you have a very clear vision, you know where you're going, you know how you're going to get there. You've surrounded yourself with the right people, and you're starting to look at data to help you make better decisions. When you have those 3 things, what happens then is you will be, it makes a very transparent organization. You will start to see all of the issues, the challenges, the problems. You will see opportunity. You will see more clarity within the organization. So the next component is the issues component. So as a business owner or a business leader, you have probably 136 different things going on in your head all the time. Sure? All these problems, all these issues, all these opportunities. So the idea is what we do here is we say, okay, the extent at which you can track these issues, solve them for the long-term greater good of the organization, the more traction, the more ability you're going to get to move forward as an organization. The next component is the process component. Process. What process does for you is process enables scalability and consistency. Growth comes through consistency, and you want consistency within your business. So you need to bite the bullet a little bit and process out what you do so that you have consistency and scalability through the organization. The last component of the model is called traction. And traction is all about accountability and discipline to execute on the vision, right? So traction is all about accountability and discipline. What we like to say in EOS is vision without traction is hallucination. Okay? You got to have traction. You will never execute unless you have a lot of discipline to execute. So these 6 components together make up what is called the EOS model. So what we do is, and if you think about what you're trying to do is you're trying to strengthen all 6 components. And typically when I start with a client, you know, we'll measure that on a scale of 0 to 100, right? And 100 being extremely strong in all the model, and 0 not quite so strong. And you're striving to be at 100, realize that that's utopia, right? So you can get 80% of there, you can get 80% of the way there, you're doing pretty good. So that's really the goal, is to improve. And most folks that are being very successful are usually running the 30% range. So I'll show you now what it takes to get to 100%. So I'm going to go back through the model and talk about each of these components. So the first one on vision, there's 2 disciplines or tools that we use to help you get really good at the vision component. So the first one is called the 8 questions. Now, if you look on the chat, I linked to you what's called the Vision Traction Organizer. That's a free tool. Use it. It will help you. And it outlines these 8 questions. So the first question is, what are your core values? What are your core values? Core values is about who are you at the core? Who are you at the core? Because you need to surround yourself with people who match your core values. So we identify, we go through a process, discover it. We all have core values, and it's a matter of discovering what yours are. They're not ones you pick out of a book. I would never recommend that. I would discover what's already in the organization. So we need to know your core values. We then identify what your core focus is. Can't spell Rick Sloppy. So your core focus is, what are you really good at, and what can you make money at? Jim Collins, in some of his books, Built to Last, Good to Great, he talks about the hedgehog theory, which is really good at one thing. If you can master and be really good at one thing, it becomes a filter to keep you from chasing money, quite honestly, that will distract you from what you're really good at and what you can make good money at. So that's your core focus. The next question we answer is your 10-year target. And it doesn't matter if it's 10 years or 5 years. The idea here is it's a long-term target. It's a long-term where you're going to go. This should be a BHAG, a big, hairy, audacious goal, again, from Jim Collins. This should be something that inspires the team, inspires you, that you're going to get to this 10-year target. And again, it might be 5, and that's fine. For example, my 5-year target is I want to impact 1,000 people's lives positively. That's what mine is. So I track when I think I had an impact on something. So let me know if I impact you at all. But that's what I'm trying to do. I was like, I want to do that. So that's my 10-year target. It could be monetary. It could be, I want to be a $10 million company, whatever it happens to be. But it needs to be long-term and inspiring. That's your 10-year target. The next item is your marketing strategy. And this is not a 10-page, complex marketing strategy. This is a simplistic marketing strategy because EOS is designed to be simple, so that entrepreneurs can actually implement on it. So the marketing strategy in this case is really, who are you going to talk to? What are you going to say? So if you could get a list of every single person you should talk to that would want to do business with you, that's your list. What's their demographic? What's their psychographic? What's your, social graphic? So who are those people? That's the list. And then we identify, what are the 3 things that make you unique in your marketplace? What makes you different than your competitors, right? And that message should align with that target market. And then we'll add some sort of guarantee, which is, you do business with me, I will guarantee this. And then what we call a proven process, meaning from the moment you start to talk to a client to they're a lifelong client, what does that look like? And we like to do that with a graphical process. So that's the marketing strategy. The next question we ask is, what is your 3-year picture? So we got a 10-year plan. Well, what's this thing look like in 3 short years from now, right? Because we need to break this down so we're moving forward. So the 3-year picture is, what's your revenue going to be? So we're in business. We need to be talking about that. What's your revenue going to be? What are your margins going to be? And some sort of measurable that we can like measure our progress as we go, and we want to stay standard with that measurement. So for example, I have a real estate client that they measure how many agents, just that's the number of agents, that's what they're using. I have a manufacturing client that measures just the number of widgets that they're completing. I have another client that measures their customer service. Whatever it is that's right for you, we pick that measurable. And then we outline, 5 to 15 things of what does this look like? It's a 3-year picture in your mind's eye, because if you can see it in your mind's eye, you're that much more likely to obtain it. So we say, okay, so what does this thing look like? Maybe it is the number of employees. Maybe it's the number of locations. Maybe it's the, I'm finally with the chamber for 10 years at that point, right? Whatever it happens to be, but we want to draw that out and say, what does this look like in 3 short years from now, so that we can move forward? This is when I talked about the Vision Traction Organizer. It has 2, and it's linked, it's in the chat if you want to download it, but it's vision section is these 5 questions. The next 3 questions are the traction section. So what we ask here is, we have a 1-year picture, or 3-year picture, excuse me. Now we want to know a 1-year plan. So now we move from picture to plan, because now we've got to put a little bit of meat onto this skeleton that we're working on, right? Again, what are your revenues going to be at the end of the year? What are your margins going to be? That same measurable that we're using, whatever it was, where is that at the end of 1 year? And then we go through and we do 3 to 7 goals. We write them as SMART goals, right? So if you remember SMART from wherever you went to school, or you've heard it before, right? Specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and time bound. I know realistic could be relative, and there's a couple different ways some of those are described, but really it's write the goal so that you know when you've accomplished it. It's really what that's all about. So we'll write, so part of our 1-year picture is we have 3 to 7 SMART goals. Less is more. Less is more. When everything's a priority, give me the answer. Nothing is a priority, right? So that's our 1-year plan. The next thing we identify are rocks. And rocks are 90-day goals. So Stephen Covey introduces rocks, and he has a glass jar. The glass jar is time. Has anyone seen this? So the glass jar is time, and he has sand and pebbles and rocks, and sand is the interruptions. Sand is the scrolling through Facebook, that stuff. It's watching a sitcom. Those are your interruptions. If you fill your time with sand, you won't have time to do anything else. His pebbles represented tasks, things you need to do to move your business forward, or your life forward for that matter. Things like answering emails that come in. It's fulfilling an order. It is, meeting with a client potentially. It could be, watching a documentary, because documentaries I don't consider as interruptions. So whatever it happens to be, and then the last is, but if you fill your jar, your time with pebbles, with tasks, you won't have any time for the big important things. Rocks are your big important things. All of us need to identify what are my rocks for the next 90 days. Human energy has an ebb and flow to it, and what we find is at a 90-day point, you kind of need to reset. So if you can set your 90-day goals that again are towards that 1-year plan, you're going towards that 3-year picture, you're going towards that 10-year target, you set these 90-day goals, you're going to get that much further. So we set these goals, we do the same thing for the 90 days as we've done for the 3-year and the 1-year, which is what's your revenue, what's your margins, what's your measurable, and then we do 3 to 7 company priorities, company goals for the organization. So that gives us a really good footing to move forward. So now we have our rocks. The last item on the Vision Traction Organizer is your issues. We call it an issues list. So really, all that stuff that's going through your head, put it on paper. Put it on paper, and then do something with it when it's the right time. Get it out of your head, get it on paper, and prioritize it when it's the right time. So if it's not this quarter, put it away. Don't keep looking at it, because it'll drive you crazy. There's plenty of things to be done. It's all about being very intentional with your time so that you can move forward. So once we've answered these 8 questions, we then want to make sure everybody in the organization, I don't care if it's 2 people or if it's 100 people or 200 people, everyone in the organization shares that vision. So we do shared by all. So what that means really is on a quarterly basis, tell your team, where have you been? Where are you? Where are you going? It gets everybody bought into the picture. The more you get everybody rowing, great things will happen. So the vision component takes the longest. So trust me, if you're blocking the time going, Peter, that's only 1 out of 6. We're going to be here till like 2 o'clock. That does take a little longer. So any questions on vision before I move on? Cool. Okay. So I'm going to move on. People's next. 2 disciplines about people. One, you have to have the right people. And they have to be in the right seats. So right people, right seats, you have to have both. In order to change a great vision, you have to have right people, right seats. Right people, they match your core values like a glove. That's who the right people are. The right people are people you want to be around. They're the people that share the same values that you share. They're the ones that are going to help you get to the next level. So surround yourself with the right people. And again, they match your values like a glove. We have a tool in EOS that we call the People Analyzer. And it's a pretty simple methodology of determining if you have the right people. So you put the names down to one side. So we'll say Bill, Joe, and Beth. And I'm not looking to see who we have because I don't want to really pick on anybody too much, but okay, there we go. So we have, let's say we just have 3 people. And what you do is you say, what are our core values? Our core value 1, core value 2, core value 3. Again, like I said, less is more. 3 to 7 core values is about all you would want. I'm going to use 3 in this instance for this. So what you do is you take your people and you say, and this is a really tough grading scale, really tough. It's really complicated. If they display the core value usually, it's a plus. It's pretty complicated, right? So Bill normally displays this core value. He's a plus. If they don't display that core value, usually, everyone has a bad day, I get that, they would get a minus. If sometimes that individual displays the core value and sometimes they don't, plus minus. There you go. This is the most simple evaluation process you will ever find. There's in your organization, you're gonna find people that are great complicators and great simplifiers. I was a complicator. I'm glad I found EOS because it's helped me a lot. I have written employee evaluation things that were like 15 pages long and managers all hated me, but it was so right. Yeah, this is easy. Entrepreneurial companies need easy stuff. This is easy. So what you do is you rate that each individual on the core values. We'll give everybody pluses on these 2. And this tells you who the right people are. Then you set a bar, right? So in this case, you have 3 core values. A minus is not acceptable. A minus doesn't work. If they don't demonstrate their core value, that has to change. 3 strikes, have a conversation. Wait a month, have a conversation. Third conversation, it's time to make a change. And so with 3 core values, you want at least 2 pluses and 1 plus minus. You make the decision of what that bar is, not me, but I'm just giving you an example here. So that's how you identify the right people. You should hire, fire, promote, reward, all on the core values. Because that's what's going to change your organization. That's what's going to get everyone excited every time they come in, because you're surrounded by people that share your values. So that's the right people aspect. The next is you want your right people, and they need to be in the right seat. So we have a lot of businesses represented here, right, today, right? We're all set up. And I'm going to say you all do the same thing. It's all the same. Here's what business does. You get work, You do work and you get paid. Does anybody not do that? You get work, do work, get paid, right? So it's as simple as that. So when we structure our organization, I like to structure it as a starting point based on that theory or based on that reality, actually. So what we do is we say the three major functions: we get work, that's your marketing and sales function. You do work, that's your ops function. You get paid, that's your finance function. Every organization, this is our basic structure we always start with. I have clients that marketing and sales is separated. I have some that, operations is three different operations groups. Finance can be broken into HR and IT. We start here again to make it as simple as possible. In order to make this really work, though, we need somebody who is the glue in the organization, the person who keeps everything going, the person that is involved with the day-to-day operations. And so we put another box right here, and we call that the integrator. We use the term integrator. There's a reason we don't use president. There's a reason we don't use CEO. The reason we don't use director of blah, 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 whatever it happens to be, is because titles bring ego. The ego must speak for the greater good of the organization. So in the US world, we don't deal with titles. Now I get it, on your business card, it might need to say something, fancy to sell the next thing or whatever it happens to be. But titles bring ego, so we use the term integrator. Integrator means they're the glue, they're keeping everything running. So this looks like an org chart, right? You've all seen an org chart before, so no groundbreaking here. This is what changes this, what I'm about to show you. This is called an accountability chart. And the way we do that is we take each position and we document the 5 things that you want that person to be obsessed with every single day. The 5 things that that person needs, that role, I won't even put a person in here yet, that role needs to be obsessed with. So if somebody is in that box, they got to be obsessed with lead managing and holding people accountable. They have to, let's say in the marketing, they have to be obsessed with bringing in leads. They have to be obsessed with whatever it happens to be. What are those 5 things that you want in that role that they're obsessed with every day they're thinking about it? So it's a very short job description with very clear accountability throughout the organization. So we need the right people in the right seats. The right people in the right seats. Right people, core values match. Right seats, they need to get it. They need to want it. And they need to have the capacity to do it. So they need to get the job, meaning that 5 roles, they get it. It's innate. It's their unique ability, as Dan Sullivan would call it, right? It's their God-given talent, as some might call it, right? They get it. It's innate to who they are. That's get it. Want it is they wake up in the morning so passionate that they do it for free. And I get it, we have to pay most people, right? But I get that. But they're so passionate about it, and they're driven to it. They want that role, right? And that last piece, the capacity to do it, capacity gets into the skills, the knowledge, the attitude to do the role, right? So the skills, they have some experience. So, but when you're looking at folks, they need to have all 3. They need to get it, they need to want it, they have to have the capacity to do it. So on the same people analyzer, we just add, we call this GWC, by the way. So if I say GWC, you'll know what I mean. So this is GWC. They get it, want it, have the capacity to do it. So what you would do is say, do they get it? Yes. Want it? Yes. Capacity to do it. And we could say yes, yes, and maybe a no here. Yes, yes, yes. They have to have all 3 or they're not in the right seat. And that's right people in the right seat. You have to have both. Any questions on people? Boom. Okay. I think Stacy kept everyone on mute just to make sure you can ask, but I'm teasing Stacy. All right. So the next component is data, right? So data is all about making decisions based on data. So the first thing we need is a scorecard. So we need a scorecard. A scorecard is really, right, what's the most important things that you need to track on a weekly basis? Notice I said weekly. I did not say daily. I did not say monthly or quarterly. Weekly, because weekly gives you enough time where you can see trends that need to have action taken upon them, right? A month is too far out. You can't, you know, you're just like, I'm making it for the next month, but it's not going to do me a lot of good. I want to make progress and change constantly, so we do weekly. So what you do is you pick the top 5 to 15 things that you're going to measure, right? So you put in, you know, each of the things you're going to measure, and then you put a goal. So what is the measurement? You put a goal in place. Where does it need to be? And then you say who owns it, right? So it's the measurement, it's the goal, and who owns it. You want these to be leading indicators where possible, right? So it might be the number of leads you have, right? It might be the number of listings you have. These are the things that are going to lead to the sale, right? So whatever it happens to be, leading indicators. Always has, what is the measurement? What's the goal? Who on the leadership team is going to own it? One throat to choke is a bad way to say that. The point is, you got to have accountability, right? So then you track 13 weeks of data on your scorecard, a rolling 13 weeks. Why 13 weeks? That's a quarter. That's 90 days, right? That's how we live. We live in a 90-day world. And then you can see the trends and you'll take action based on that. So we get scorecards, and we want scorecards at every level within the organization. So when I drew this, I didn't put my other boxes in, but the point is, right, you'd have a finance scorecard, you'd have an ops scorecard, you know, the bigger you get, the more scorecards you have. So scorecards enable us to make great decisions, so we're moving the business forward. The other thing that we need to do in the data component is we have measurements. Measurement. Every person within the organization should have a number that they're required to keep up. So a number. So if it's the, I don't care who it is, shipping and receiving, it's the number of boxes they shipped, right? If it's the, you know, I could go on, right? You answer the phone, right? They get how many rings did it take them to answer the phone? If it's the person flipping burgers, how many clients, you know, whatever it happens to be, a measurement, a number. Again, this helps us move forward. People want to be a part of something. They want to know how well they're doing. And if it's just go do your job and they don't have the 5 descriptions of their job, and they don't have a measurement, they don't know what it is, it's going to take away from that potential satisfaction they have of helping move the organization forward. So 100% strong in data is we have a scorecard at every level of the business, and every individual in the business also has a measure. That's 100% strong in vision, people, and data. As I mentioned earlier, as you get strong here and you have the right people and you're looking at the right data, you're going to see more problems than you ever saw before, because your people are going to help you find them because you're becoming transparent, right? Or sometimes it's the people that's the problem, and you're going to identify that. But you're going to, you know, the problems, the opportunities, all these things, as you get transparent, you're going to see more of what you can do and need to act upon. So issues is the next component. So with the issues component, we want to keep lists. So we keep 2 types of issues lists. One is our long-term issues that we keep on our vision traction organizer. These are ones that you're not going to touch till the next quarter, maybe not till a year, maybe not to 2 years. So your long-term issues list, you know, is this short-term or long-term? If it's long-term, put it off till later. Short-term issues lists are ones that you can address typically within 7 days. So that ends up becoming a to-do for somebody potentially at some point in time. So we keep 2 lists. One is long-term issues, one short-term issues. So just whatever the issue is, writing them down, putting them on paper, so we keep them. The next discipline for issues is something called IDS. So IDS stands for identify, discuss, and solve. So with issues, identify, discuss, solve. Identify is about identify the root cause. When you get together with your team and you're working with somebody, it could just be one person, it could be 10, I don't care. You say, okay, we have this issue. What's the root cause of the issue, right? So, for example, the issue might be Dave Barron's video keeps coming on and then he goes off and he comes on and goes off. So what's the root cause of Dave Barron's, the video problem? And it's probably because Dave's doing something else is the root cause. And I don't know that. I'm picking on you, Dave, sorry. But the point is, identify the root cause, because in order to solve something, you got to know what it truly is. So a good example might be Betsy has been coming in late all week. Well, what's the root cause of that? Maybe she has childcare concerns. Maybe she's had problems with her car. What is the root cause? Because you can't solve it unless you truly know what the root cause is. I had a client recently mention that, yeah, our revenue is a problem. It's an issue. Okay, I'm like, well, is that really the root cause? Because what's the root cause of revenue? It's probably leads, right? It could be meetings. It could be your close ratio. It's not revenue, right? Revenue is the end result of it. What's the root cause of the issue? So all the conversation on solving an issue has to start with what is the root cause. So that's the identify. Discuss, now we can talk about it. Now that we know what the root cause is, now we can talk about it. So we discuss it to solve it. So the discussion all has to be wrapped around solving it. What can we do to solve it? And then the last piece is solve, right? Which is typically some sort of to-do for someone to go forth and do something differently to solve the problem. That's typically a solve. Sometimes it's just somebody needed information and the solve just happens while you're discussing, and that's fine too. So keep track of your issues and then IDS those issues. Identify, discuss, solve of those issues. And you'll benefit greatly from it. So I've been on a lot of different leadership teams in my life. I'm kind of older than most of you. So I've been on a lot of different leadership teams in my life and really good ones, very successful teams. And we would get in a room and we would discuss the issue, discuss the issue, and discuss the issue, and discuss the issue, and discuss the issue, and never solve a darn thing. When you walk out of that meeting going, oh my God, I just wasted half a day. Why? Because you weren't solving issues. Solving issues makes the time together productive. So 100% strong in issues is you keep two good lists of your issues, long-term, short-term, and when you go to solve them, you use the IDS process. Identify the root cause, discuss it to solve, and solve it. Questions on issues? So that's 100% strong there. Process is the next one. And entrepreneurs love process. Commonly not. That's not commonly not the case, right? But process is what's going to give you scalability and consistency. So in order to grow your business, grow whatever you're doing, consistency is key. In order to scale, bring on the next person, you need to have process so they know what to do and they do it your way. So what we do with process is we document our processes. So we document the process. We utilize a methodology of 80-20. You will get 80% of your results out of 20% of your efforts. So I'm not saying make a 700-page SOP manual. No one will ever read that. Take your processes and do one-pagers, hopefully, on a decent-sized font, not one page at 6-point font, all right? So take your processes, and so every business has a handful of core processes. So every business has a handful of core processes. So you got to identify your core processes. You might have an HR process, probably do, a marketing process, a sales process, a couple of ops processes, accounts payable process, accounts receivable process, maybe a customer service process, right? So it starts with what are the processes that we need here in our organization, And now we document them just at that 20% point. What are the major bullets that somebody needs to do in order to successfully perform on that process in a very consistent manner? So we document our processes. Once we have our documented processes, we want to make sure that they are followed by all. Everybody who touches that process needs to do it the same way. That's consistency. Now, you say, and I would instantly, my first thought was, wait a minute, we're entrepreneurs, we're going to change how we do things. Absolutely, and you should. But when you change it, everybody should do it the new way, so you know that it's actually working. So it's definitely change as you need to. But everyone has to follow whatever process we've agreed to follow. Okay? So 100% strong in process is we've documented our core processes and they are followed by all. That's 100% strong in process. Any questions on that? Boom. Okay. So the next one, the last one, is traction. Traction has two components. One is called rocks, and one is called the meeting pulse. So I've already described rocks to you, right? Over here, I talked about what rocks are, right? These are your long-term priority, or these are your 90-day priorities. These are the things we have to get done in 90 days to move us forward. So within the business, what we want is 3 to 7 rocks for the company. A leadership team member would own each of those rocks. And then eventually what you want to get to the point is every individual in the company owns at least one rock. It might be read John Maxwell's 101, Attitude 101, for example. It could be as simple as that. But that concept is everybody has this 90-day goal for them to accomplish. Rocks give us traction. They help us move forward towards our vision. So on a leadership team, 3 to 7 rocks are every member of the leadership team. And then with it throughout the organization, at least 1 rock for everybody in the organization. Think about it. If you get whatever number of people, you say you have 10 people, everybody's working on the priorities of the business, you're going to move forward. It's just going to happen. It doesn't happen by osmosis. You have to be intentional. You have to talk about what's important, and you have to have people sign up and say, hey, I'm going to do that. That's what rocks are about. So the next piece is the meeting pulse. So your meeting pulse, one, I did already mention, quarterly, you should have a state of the company. And that's what we call it, state of the company address, where you share with your team, where have I been, where have we been, where are we today, and where we're going, right? And that's a lot about what's on your VTO, on your Vision Traction Organizer. Where are you? Where have you been? Where are you? Where are you going? So that's quarterly. On a weekly basis, we do what's called an L10 meeting. So when I ask clients, or when prospects, I would say more likely, I'll ask them, so on a scale of 1 to 10, how effective are your meetings? Guess what I usually get? Depending upon whether the owner speaks first or not, right? 3, 4, 5 on a scale of 1 to 10. Meetings tend to be a waste of time for us. That's in business. It happens all the time. It's, oh my gosh, another meeting. I hate this. So Gino designed this L10 meeting, level 10 meeting, to make it so when people attend this meeting and they say, how was it? They say 10. It was phenomenal. Matter of fact, Jess will tell you, in our brag group, we rate our meeting at the end of brag. Today we had probably 9.5 or something. It was really good. There was a lot of 10s. That was the benefit of me not running it anymore. Sharon Wither does a much better job than I did. But it's the idea. It's like, let's focus on being productive. So this L10 meeting, this is a weekly meeting. It's 90 minutes long with your leadership team. And I do it. I have one employee, I have an office manager, and we do it together. So our leadership team is just the 2 of us. We still spend the 90 minutes. We still use this exact agenda. So this is the agenda. So I said, first, it's the same day of the week and at the same time every week. So ours is Mondays at 1 p.m. So every Monday, 1 p.m., me and my office manager meet for 90 minutes. The idea is same day, same time. This is the most important meeting you could attend while you're in business. So everybody has to be there that's in that and makes that their priority. Oh, I got a customer to go to. Nope, sorry. This is the priority. You make this the priority, you'll have better meetings. So there's 2 reasons why you can miss this meeting. Okay. So one reason is you're on vacation. When you're on vacation, you should be on vacation, right? That's one reason. The other reason is a death. And I'm not talking about someone else's death. I'm talking about your death. Those are the 2 reasons to miss the meeting. Okay? So the meeting has the same exact agenda every single time. It starts with a segue. And that takes 5 minutes. The segue works like this. You go around the room and each person shares 1 personal good news from the week and 1 business good news from the week. Personal good news, business good news. No Eeyores. Sorry if you know who Eeyore is. I want to insult Eeyore, but it's about positivity. It's about what's going on good. It keeps everyone connected. Too often in business, we only talk about business and we don't truly get to know each other. This helps people go, oh, wow, that's going on. That's awesome, right? It's quick. It's 5 minutes. You go around the room with the segue. The next thing we do is we review our scorecards. And we take 5 minutes. So we have 5 to 15 measurements on the scorecard. We take 5 minutes to review them. So if the scorecard number is off, and all you do on the scorecard is say, is this number, are we hitting the goal or not hitting the goal? If it's not hitting the goal, we use a term called drop it down. And we will drop it down to what's called the IDS session. IDS, identify, discuss, solve. We're not going to talk about things that are off, or if you want to know about something, the magic word is drop that down. So we drop it down. Scorecards. The next one is the rock review. So rock review, again, it's 5 minutes. What we're doing now is going around the room, or starting with all our company rocks and then our individual leadership rocks, and say, okay, this is your rock. Is it on track or off track? On track or off track? No discussion. This is all about review. So if it's off track, guess what you do? Drop it down, right? Because you'll talk about that if it warrants the conversation. If you're really not quite sure that person's really on track with that rock and they said on track, just drop it down. Okay, so it's okay to drop down even ones that are on track. So the next piece of this is headlines. And headlines take 5 minutes. And the headline is like this. It is customer and employee headlines. So anything going on in the business with customers, this customer complained, this customer was super happy, this customer's going out of business, whatever it happens to be, it's a headline. How many words in a headline? 5-ish, right? 7 maybe? You're pushing it using smaller font. It's not a diatribe on it. It's short. If you're interested in knowing more, you say, drop it down, right? Same thing about employees. This employee is getting married. This employee's having a baby. This employee's, their mom died, right? Their mom died. We're going to drop that down because we probably want to send flowers or something, right? We'll talk about that after. Just quick, these are the headlines. It keeps the circles connected. It keeps everyone knowing what's going on in the business, because that's critical, because we have people in the business and that's what it's all about, right? Life's short. It's about the people that we surround ourselves with. Sorry, I just got chills saying that. So that's the headlines. The next one is to-dos. So we're going to review our to-dos. So you'll have a list of to-dos from the previous week, right? So the previous week, you had some to-dos people needed to accomplish because they had issues that were being solved and they were solved with a to-do. And all you're going through there is say, is the to-do to done? Because to-dos need to be done, to done. To get traction, 90% of those to-dos need to be done, right? So move the to-dos to dones. If somebody didn't get the to-do done, you just drop that down to the idea session. So that's so the first 25 minutes is all about is all about smoking out issues. It's about keeping everybody connected and informed. Now we get into the meat of the meeting, which is we spend 60 minutes on solving the problems within the business. So you'll end up, you typically will have some sort of list of all your issues within the business. And, I have some clients that have 100 issues on their list. I have some that have 25. It doesn't really matter. And so what we do now is we're going to IDS this. So in order to IDS, we have to start by which one do we attack first? And you could spend an hour, that's 60 minutes, on putting them all in sequence of which one's most important to least important, and then you won't have any time to do anything with it, right? The CEO or the integrator in our case could say, yeah, it's these 3 things we're going to talk about first. Okay, what about the voice of the CFO, right? Because the CFO, the financial officer, usually wants to talk about expenses. Nobody else in that room wants to talk about expenses. So we want to make it so any of them can say, this is important to me today. So what you do is say, what do we want to talk about? And you just do the first 3. So we'll talk about this one maybe, and that one. So we just pick 3. We don't prioritize it, first 3. And whoever yells out, this one, this one, this one, that's how we say we're going to talk about those. Now, you take that issue and you solve it. You go, identify the root cause. Let's discuss this root cause. And sometimes that's typically the thing that takes the longest. Well, what is the root cause? What is the root cause? What's truly? Now we've identified the root cause. And sometimes what's on the issues list may have a couple of root causes. So you could have a little bit of a spin-off there. But we identify the root cause. We now discuss it to solve it. And then we solve it typically with a to-do. Once you solve one, you complete it. You go to number 2, you solve that. You go to number 3, and you now rinse and repeat. What's our next 3? Okay, 1, 2, and let's say this one's 3. And you continue doing that for the 60 minutes. Somebody's obviously taking watching the clock. So whatever that Brad group that has a clock, this would work great for. So you do it for 60 minutes. Sometimes you will solve 10, 15 items. Sometimes you'll solve 1. It really depends on how big the issue is. But the idea is if you only solve that 1 or 2 or 3, those are the most important issues to solve in your business. It makes sense. So now we walk away, we've solved. So the last piece of this is we've done our IDS, we now do conclude. And that takes 5 minutes. So conclude has 3 components of it. The first thing we do is we recap what are the to-dos. So everybody walks away knowing specifically what the to-do is, right? So I've looked David in the eye and I said, David, your to-do is, and David looks back at me like that. Besides, does work on Zoom as well. But we say, okay, these are the to-dos. Everyone knows what the to-dos are. Then we look at and say, what out of what we've talked about today and solved, what needs to be cascaded? Who else needs to know what? Too often, leadership teams get in a room, they make a decision, and they change the way we're answering the phone. And they never let the receptionist know that they've changed the way we answer the phone. Whatever it happens to be. This happens often where we don't cascade properly. So it's built into the meeting. Who do we need to communicate to? And obviously that becomes a to-do to communicate. The last part of that is on a scale of 1 to 10, how did we do today? A scale of 1 to 10, how did we do today? We're striving for 10, but there's reasons why it might not be, right? Maybe we were, beating a dead horse during the IDS, right? Talking about it too much. Maybe somebody showed up late. Whatever it happens to be, it might not always be a 10, and that's okay because we want to strive for perfection, realizing we won't get there. So we just want to keep improving. So 100% strong in traction is we've got rocks at every level. We're running our L10 meetings, and we're going to start hitting our vision. And that's all I have. Any questions?
It did allow people to unmute themselves. So if they do have questions, they are more than, they can just hit the unmute button and ask them. I didn't permanently mute everybody.
I kind of have a question. Like, my biggest thing is like getting, so I have independent contractors that work for me. So some of them may have other jobs and, you know, so trying to get, I try to do a meeting like once a month, but it's just difficult sometimes with everybody's schedules and stuff. I mean, should I like maybe email prep a meeting first or?
That's a good question. So yeah, you know, it's interesting with independent contractors because you can't say you must attend this, right? Because they don't work for you.
Right.
So you want to make it compelling. So once they do it, it's so good. They always want to be there. You know, weekly is the ideal, right? But again, right? So there's the rule and the exception, right? Depending upon the real point here is make it consistent. Have a very consistent agenda. This agenda, I wish I found it 30 years ago, quite honestly, because it works every time. And it keeps everyone very focused on what's the most important thing. So it's gonna, you know, again, you're in somewhat of a unique, you know, situation where you can't like demand it so much.
Right.
So
yeah, because they're not in the same office or, you know, we're not all working the same hours. So.
Yeah, I definitely use Zoom to, you know, if you're not working in the same office, you know,
right.
The best thing about COVID is that we've all gotten a lot better at Zoom.
That is true.
What other questions do you have? Andrea, it's nice to see you, by the way. I've seen you since pre-COVID.
Peter, when are you coming out with your own book?
What's that, Tom?
When are you coming out with your own book?
Yeah, that's pretty funny. So, yeah, that is actually funny. I read a book every month, a business book every month, and I'm not because I found traction now, and this works. So, yeah, my book would be. I won't say. It wouldn't be business problem.
Okay.
Thanks, Tom.
Good. I love it. Thank you.
Anything else? So here's the deal. I'm here to help. You find the files in the chat. Definitely download those. Check out the US website and check out my own. I'm truly here to help. So, like, if you ever have a question you want to talk about business, I love talking about it. So I am here to help anybody with anything. That's for real.
Hey, Peter, this is awesome. We had almost 100% attendance from our Tuesday group. So we should all be rocking and rolling in our careers in the next week or so.
That's awesome.
I know I personally, as the leader of the group, have some things that I'm going to use as our 10 minutes. So
Awesome.
Really, really awesome. Great job, Peter.
Excellent. It's nice seeing you guys. We met at a chamber breakfast coffee one time. I forget where exactly that was, but I miss seeing everybody. I'm a hugger, so, you know, COVID's tough for me. What else? Here to help. Okay, on a scale of 1 to 10, how was today's meeting? Put it in chat. Yeah, seriously. Put it in chat. Thank you, Lynn. Cool. Back to you, Stacey.
Awesome. Well, there's a lot of 10s and 9.9s in the chat, Peter, so you should be very pleased this morning. I think it was great. Thank you all so much for attending. We will certainly share this, so if anyone in your groups or anyone you want to share it with, we will certainly be able to get that over to you as soon as it downloads. So thank you all so much. I hope you have a great rest of the day. If you've got suggestions on programs and things that we can be bringing to you, please let us know. We're happy to find those speakers. We've got a wealth of members that can provide good information like Peter did today. So again, reach out, and we look, like everyone has said, I look forward to seeing everyone in person very, very soon. So have a great rest of your day.
Thanks, Peter.
Thank you, Peter. Thank you so much, Peter.
Bye,
Appreciate it.
Chamber group and everybody else.
Bye, friends.
Take care, everyone.
Bye, everybody.